Lots of low rank players still think Brig has very low heals and can't compare to someone like Ana or Mercy. Brig's value lies in countering the enemy team while staying alive so you can contribute the most to your team. With that said, let me tell you exactly when you should pick Brig to counter the enemy and why. This is the Brig Counter Picking Guide. Hey everyone, if you don't know who I am, my name is Holy Shift Kid. I'm a 45-34 peak main support, which includes Brig. Let me give you some advice for when I switch to Brig, just like how I carry in my games. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment any questions you have down below. Alright, so we have 5 different categories to get through. We have the hard counter tier, which is when you should basically 100% play Brig. We have the counter tier, which is where Brig is very strong and strongly advised. After that is the soft counter tier, where Brig can play well into these heroes, but I wouldn't swap into them really. Next is the doesn't counter tier, which is where Brig neither counters nor gets too hard countered by the enemy team. These heroes are mostly for when you have one of the heroes above, but these others are on their team. Lastly is the swap Brig tier, where I would not recommend playing Brig. All these tiers have specific heroes, but once we are done with that, there is another view of when to play Brig. This is in team comps. Sometimes the enemy team isn't playing the specific heroes on that list, but the team comp that you are running or the enemy team is running can determine whether you stay Brig or not. Let's start with the hard counter tier. These two heroes are the best heroes to run Brig against: Wrecking Ball and Tracer. For the first few tiers, the order from left to right is important, and as y'all should know, Ball is your #1 priority. If the enemy team is running Wrecking Ball, I practically always switch to Brig so that that stupid, overpowered hero can actually get shut down and I can win it for my team. Tracer is another hard counter hero for Brig. Tracers can also get away with a lot if you aren't running someone to look at the Tracer, and you swapping will just change the way she plays, whether or not you get abilities on her. With Brig's presence, Tracers will not be as aggressive in the backline. Inspire can poke out her damage sometimes, and Rally Armor makes it pretty hard for Tracer to get value. Just be careful about those pulse bombs. Ball and Tracer are must picks to switch to Brig, and them on the same team is an absolute must. Next is the counter tier. You don't necessarily hard counter and completely roll these heroes, however, Brig is a pretty strong pick against these heroes, and considering swapping can be a good idea. Winston and D.Va are first on this list because Brig obviously counters these two heroes very strongly, especially when paired together. Next we have our iconic DPS list of Genji, Sombra, Doomfist, and Reaper, when Brig can counter these DPS pretty hard. However, swapping Brig into these heroes isn't a necessity, it can definitely help you win the game. Next here I put Lucio and Hog. Lucio is just the worst version of Brig sometimes, and if he is out of position or doing some dumb stuff, you could just kill him. And surprisingly, I'm putting Hog in this tier, but at the bottom of the counter, meaning least important in this tier. Brig can counter Hog in kind of multiple ways. You have a shield to block his hook, a stun to stop his breather and to stop his ultimate, and you can boop him away from his hook targets, saving your team. All of this takes pretty strong skill though, but countering Hog is definitely possible and carryable. Let's move to the soft counter pick. These heroes, you can get value into Brig sometimes, but with other heroes, it can be hard to play Brig into. These heroes are Sigma, Rein, and Orisa. Brig individually with some skill can play well into these heroes, however these tanks by any means are not a must pick into Brig, and you really don't see them and think, let me pick Brig. Usually when these heroes are paired with ones previously mentioned, you won't be shut down by these picks in this tier. These are just soft counters where comps like Ball, Sigma as the enemy tanks, that's fine, however you swap to Brig for the Ball, not for the Sigma. But it's still not horrible to play into Sigma. This next tier is the does not counter. I wouldn't consider switching Brig into these heroes by any means, but this is more of a neutral tier. This is where the value of left to right doesn't matter anymore, but these heroes just have little interaction with Brig overall. I have some snipers on here like Hanzo and Ashe, as I feel you could exist on Brig if it is them alone. However, these snipers are just outside your jurisdiction to counter or deal with as Brig. Again, this is more of a neutral tier, so Brig doesn't do much against these heroes most of the time. Overall, if these heroes were on the enemy team, I usually would not switch to Brig. Lastly is the swap Brig tier. These are the heroes where Brig can be pretty bad to play into and you should consider swapping. First up here I put Zarya because Zarya is Brig's hardest counter with her bubbles. Her high damage and bubbles shuts down Brig pretty hard, even on the heroes you counter above sometimes. Switching if their Zarya is doing a lot of work can be great for you. Next, I have all the long-range DPS heroes like Bastion, Widow, Pharah, Torb, and Junkrat, as Brig can be poked out easily by these heroes. Playing Brig into this tier feels rough, and picking another support like Mercy to pocket a DPS. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, check out this video in the top right and who you should pocket on Mercy and when you should pick her. Or if you go something like BAP if you need the main heal. Now that we have specific heroes out of the way, let's go in depth with the bigger picture and what comps to run Brig against. I made another tier list with the best comps to play against Brig. The must-pick Brig status is the ball comps and dive comps, and this is to no surprise. Ball Diva, Ball Sigma, even Ball Zarya, or something with Winston, say Winston Diva or Winston Zarya, although a little bit harder, I'd say is a must-pick for Brig as she excels heavily against Ball. The next two comps are against Rush and Double Shield, which I'd say is a toss-up. If the enemy team is playing Rush with Ryan, Lucio, and speeding on you, you can sometimes get value as Brig. The only way you're probably going to get value into this comp is you have to play with tanks and have one to walk with, like an Orisa or Sigma yourself. Then you can play up with your tanks and stop some of the oncoming aggression. But if the enemy team is too fast or you don't have the front line to play with, switching off can be a good idea. The same can be said for playing Brig against Double Shield. You will probably want some tank to walk with like a Sigma or Orisa, but if the Double Shield is too pokey with a double sniper and a Zen, I just advise switching to Mercy or Zen yourself to play the poke battle from range rather than the brawl one. The last comp we have that's the worst for Brig, and that is Hog Zarya as a tank duo. This tank lineup is just too hard for Brig to get any value, and going Ana if you don't have one can help break this off-tank duo with antis. Overall, here's the tier list for when you should switch to Brig to counter the enemy. If you have a question or comment about this, leave a comment down below or come by one of my Twitch streams at twitch.tv/HolyShiftKid. Thanks so much for watching and go farm those kids in ranked. Bye!